What's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kylie and I write new adult fantasy. I set a goal for 2022 to read 25 books and I hit that goal. Sort of. Does it count if you didn't finish all of the books? Here is all of the books that I read in 2022 in the order I read them and a little bit about each book. At least the ones I can remember, which isn't a lot. Also, stick around to the end of the video and I'll share my goal for 2023 and how I'm going to choose the books that I'm reading. Now let's get into my 2022 reading recap. Also, if anyone is wondering what's in my Reading is Sexy mug, it's pumpkin spiced hot chocolate. I know we're past the pumpkin season, but I love it, so I'm keeping it going. So the first book I read in 2022 was Warrior Goddess Training by Heather Ashe Amara. Just so you know, I am going to butcher every single author name in this video. So this book was really good for if you're feeling a little bit like you're not enough, if you're being overwhelmed by the day-to-day of what's going on in your life. One of the things it says on the back is Amara will show you how to release the layers of expectations to finally see yourself for the authentic, perceptive, perfect woman you really are. So I really enjoyed this book. It was a really great way to start the year. There is a companion workbook that goes with it that I have, but I haven't actually used yet. So you can use it alongside while you're reading this, or you can use it totally separate. But I definitely recommend this book. It was a good way to start the new year. The second book that I read was actually one that I didn't finish. It was Midnight at the Bright Ideas Bookstore by Matthew Sullivan. I read to page 50, and if I'm remembering correctly, it just had some creepy vibes. I am not a huge fan of reading anything that's kind of creepy scary. I don't mind like scary stuff like monsters and stuff that you read in fantasy books, but the stuff that's like creepy and almost makes you feel kind of nauseous when you're reading it, not a fan of that. I have way too much of an imagination. I will definitely have nightmares. I don't want any part of it. So it's not that I'm not recommending any of these books, because this book probably is totally some people's jam. Just wasn't for me. I believe I donated it earlier in the year and that's why I can't find it. So that was my first DNF of 2022. The second book I read was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Maas? I never know if I'm saying that right. Either way, loved this book. Obviously she's a very popular author. There's a lot of hype going on about her over the past year. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like this book very much because this is in a series and the rest of the series focuses on a different character, Feyre, if I'm remembering correctly. And this one is about her sister Nesta. So I wasn't sure if I was going to like the change in kind of storyline, jumping to a different character. But I actually ended up loving it. Super glad I read it. A little bit spicier than her other books if I'm remembering, but definitely well worth the read if you are a fan of her books. Or books like hers. I don't know if you can hear that, but my poor dog is crying upstairs because the hydro went out this morning and he's terrified. But he also doesn't like the basement, which is where my studio is. The fourth book I read was The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. This book was recommended to me by a friend a few years ago, but I just picked it up this year. And from what I remember, I do remember enjoying this book. It's about a superstar lawyer who has a lot of material success but feels really empty inside. And he's kind of having a conversation with gurus throughout the book. It had a lot of interesting points, just kind of things that make you think a little bit deeper. The next book that I read in 2022 was My Plain Jane, and this is by three authors, Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. This actually came out of an Owl Crate box when I was subscribed to them a couple years ago, so it sat on my shelf for a little bit before I actually read it. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember anything about this book. I believe I enjoyed it, but I can't tell you anything about it aside from that it's like a remaking of or retelling of Jane Eyre's story. Jane Eyre's story? I really just don't like saying people's names. sixth book that I read is Pride by Ibi Zoboi. Hopefully I didn't butcher that one completely. I don't know what happened with this one because I thought I kept it, but I searched my bookshelves and I cannot find it anywhere, so it's possible I donated it. This one I just read too long ago. This was probably like February or March, and I really don't remember anything about it aside from that it also came from an Owl Crate box, and it was a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, I believe, which is why it's called Pride. Book 7 was The Legend of Broken by Caleb Carr. This is another one I can't find, but I know why. It's because I didn't finish it, so I definitely donated it. According to my notes, I only read to page 26. Normally when I am reading a book, I try to get to at least page 50 to get a feel for it, to see if maybe it's just a little bit slower and I need a little extra time to get into it. This one, I don't remember why, but I gave up pretty early. So that was my second DNF of 2022, and we're probably in around March at this point. The hydro just went out. I'm like not even a quarter way through filming this video, and now we're in the dark. So I can see my dog at the top of the stairs like, I'm terrified, come get me. I don't know if I should get some candles or wait and see if the hydro comes back on. We're kind of at the beginning of a major winter storm, so there's a good chance the power won't come back on. Okay, the power is already back on, but it's probably temporary, so I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as I can. The 8th book I read this year is A Plague of Giants by Kevin Hearn. I honestly don't remember anything about this book, although I do remember that I enjoyed it. It was kind of different. I believe it's kind of fantasy-esque. Yeah, somebody on the back calls it like epic fantasy, although it's just one book as far as I know. Maybe there's more. This one also came out of a book box, although it wasn't Owl Crate and I don't remember. I just kicked my dog because he's under my chair. I didn't know he was there. Sorry, buddy. Whoops. Yeah, this one came out of a book box, but it was quite a while ago and I honestly don't remember which book box it is, so I'm not even going to try naming it. But it was a good book. Maybe something I wouldn't have found if it hadn't come in that book box. The next book I read is Clandestine by... How many times is this going to happen in this video? Oh my gosh. How bad is this going to look if I do this all in the dark? Oh, that's terrible lighting. I can't do that. So we have no hydro right now, and this is what it looks like outside. So not really a whole lot going on yet, even though there is a major storm coming. If we already don't have hydro, I have no hopes for this holiday weekend and us having hydro at all. Okay, so we have officially relocated upstairs where I can sit in front of a window since we have no hydro now, and I really want to get through this video because I only have a couple hours where there's nobody home but me. So you gotta film when you gotta film. So we're just gonna roll with this, and sorry it's a less appealing background, but we'll just have to make do. There's also some really wicked glare on my glasses, so I guess we'll just take those off. I was just trying to match my mug. Book 9 is Clandestine by A.A. Gordon. This is my absolute favorite paranormal romance series. This is book 6 in the series. Each book follows a different set of characters, but they all are entwined in the same story, in the same world, but they're often enemies of each other, so it's really interesting to get the different perspectives as you read the different novels. Highly recommend this if, one, you want really well-written romance, a lot of spice in some of the books, but also if you like your romance books to have more of a plot line and a storyline and intrigue in that way, that it's not just centered specifically just on romance. There's actually a lot going on in the background that makes you want to go to the next book and find out what's going to happen to each of the characters. Very, very good series. So definitely highly, highly recommend this one if you're a fan of paranormal romance. I just stopped the camera because I was like, oh, I should plug in our Christmas tree because I'm sitting right beside it. And then I remembered the reason I'm up here is because there's no hydro. So plugging in the tree is not going to make a difference. Book number 10 is Happy Days by Gabrielle Bernstein. If you're in the self-developmental world or spirituality, you've probably heard of Gabrielle Bernstein because she is all over it. I've read quite a few of her books and I've seen a lot of her videos, a lot of her talks. And I really do like her content. I think she puts out some really helpful content. But at this point, I think I've seen it or read it so many times that it's becoming a little bit repetitive, some of it. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing because sometimes you need that repetition before it sinks in. But I think when I was reading this book, I felt like a lot of the information I already had. The 11th book I read was an ebook called Find Your True North by Kalle Fludin. Kalle is a YouTuber that I watch probably for the last between 1 and 2 years when I first discovered his videos. I really like his content. He lives in a remote cabin in Sweden and he shares a lot of videos about what that life is like and the challenges, the struggles, the highs, the lows. But he wrote an ebook that's all about finding your passion and how to kind of go after what you really want in life. And I love reading and watching that kind of content. So I really wanted to pick up his ebook. It was like a fairly short read, so it was very easy to digest, and it had some different prompts and questions that you really want to ask yourself if you're trying to find your true north. Book number 12 is Kith and Kin by Mariek Nijkamp. This is, if you're a D&D nerd like I am, you may recognize this. Critical Role is a absolutely massive Dungeons and Dragons show on YouTube. And the Vox Machina is from their first, whoa, what is happening? Vox Machina is from their first, Hydra just came back on. But it's already come on and gone back off about 5 times since I started filming this. So I'm sure it'll be off before I end this video. And once again, my dog is terrified. So Kith and Kin is about 2 of the characters from the Critical Role's first campaign, The Legend of Vox Machina. And I don't believe the story in this book is actually something that happened in the campaign. I think it's, if I'm remembering correctly, it's prior to the campaign. It's a story about their past. But I really actually enjoyed this read. A friend of mine, Matt, gave this to me, and I'm super glad he did because I really enjoyed it. So I hope they come out with more books about their characters. This is the face of a terrified chihuahua. Look at those eyes. It's hard being a chihuahua. The next book I read was another DNF. So it was called The Courage to Be Happy by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. I don't remember a lot about this book because it looks like I've read to only page 24. So that's 2 books now that I didn't try to get to my standard, like at least read 50 pages. I believe this one, if I'm thinking of the right book, it was kind of like a conversation between a teacher and a student, like where it actually said, I don't think these are the words they used, but like teacher, colon, then whatever they said, student, colon, whatever they said. I should probably have looked that up before I started this video in case I'm thinking of a totally different book. But yeah, it was something I just couldn't get into at the time. Doesn't mean there was anything wrong with the book, just wasn't for me at the time that I picked it up. The next book I read is Radical Confidence by Lisa Bilyeu. Lisa is another person that I found on YouTube. She runs the channel, it's called Women of Impact, and she does a lot of really great interviews on that channel. But she's very no BS, as the book says right there. Funny, but definitely gets to the point, has a lot of really great advice. A lot of her videos just kind of open my mind to thinking about things in a different way. So when I found out that she was writing a book, I knew I was definitely going to pick it up. And especially for me, this one particularly, because I struggle with confidence. So this book had a lot of really great points. It's definitely something I will reread again. Book 15 is another Sarah J. Maas. It's Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. I absolutely loved this book. It was so good. It took maybe a couple chapters. I was a little bit unsure how I was going to feel about it, and then I was obsessed and couldn't put it down. It's a pretty beefy book, but it's just... I don't remember what it's about. It was a really good read. I loved the characters. I loved the story. There were a lot of twists and turns, and yeah, I found it really unique, and I really love her style of writing. So I'm kind of sold. Any of her books, I'm probably gonna pick up because I have really enjoyed everything she's written that I've read so far. Definitely recommend this series. Book 16 is another Gabrielle Bernstein book, Miracles Now. I've had this book on my shelf for years, and I don't know what it was that made me pick it up this year, but again, actually, I have a feeling it's because I was feeling stressed, because it says right here, 108 life-changing tools for less stress. So that was probably why. Again, I think she has good content. I don't know that anything in this book was stuff that I hadn't heard or read from her before, but just flipping to the index here, see if there's anything that stands out. So there's titles like Stop Obsessing, Stillness is the Key to Success, Take a 1-minute gratitude break. We've heard that before. Deal with your own mind. I feel like that's pretty important. Book 17, my next DNF. The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. Again, nothing wrong with this book. I remember reading the back and thinking it sounds really interesting. I believe it's a thriller. But as I mentioned earlier, I can't do creepy. And I'm pretty sure... So I actually got really far in this one. I got to page 162. But if I'm remembering right, things got weird. And like too weird for me. I don't need to be thinking about weird, murdery people when I'm trying to sleep at night. So, probably a great book, not for me. The next book I read is The Comfort Book by Matt Haig, and I love this book. My mom got me this book when I was feeling down one day, and it's just a bunch of, let's see if I can show the camera this, just a bunch of like little notes, little passages that are really easy to digest, obviously, really easy to read. You don't need a lot of time. Like this one just says, "You are here, and that is enough." Just really sweet messages, and it's quite a variety. Not all quotes from this author, some are quotes from other people. Like this says, "You are waterproof. It is easier to learn to be soaked and happy than learn how to stop the rain." So just really sweet, simple messages like that, that I really enjoyed just flipping through, either one a day, or if I was feeling a little funky and felt like I needed a little pick-me-up. I try to find another one. Let's read this one. It's called Let It Be. Get out of your own way. Being yourself isn't something you have to do. You were born yourself, and you didn't even have to try. In fact, trying is the whole problem. You can't try to be. You can only let yourself be. So I really recommend this book. It just had a lot of great pages, like the one that I just read. Book 19 is the third Sarah J. Maas book on the list, and this one is Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath. So this is the second Crescent City book. And oh my gosh, this book was insanity. I loved it so much. There was so many things happening that I felt like I was constantly like on a roller coaster that would take an unexpected turn that I wasn't expecting because I couldn't see it coming. So there was things where I was like, oh, I know where this is going. And then suddenly I was like, nope, I was completely wrong. I didn't know anything about where that was going. Super great book. Love the character development. Love the chaos and everything that happens. Love the action and the romance and the ending. If you've read this, you know what I mean. I won't say any more because I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but you should read it. Because the next book I read, I bought purely for the cover. Look at this beautiful book cover. Somebody shared it on, there we go. Somebody shared it on a Facebook group, and I instantly bought it without even reading what this book was about. But fortunately, after I got it, I read it, and I loved the story too. It was whimsical and creative, and something I never really read anything like before. Just looking at the back, it says somebody had said it was a beautiful, mesmerizing retelling, which I didn't know it was a retelling. I'm not sure what it's a retelling of, but if retellings are your thing, maybe you'd want to pick this up. Oh, I didn't say who it was by. It's by Axio. But just to read a little bit of the book blurb, I'm just going to pop to the middle here. Swept away to the spirit realm, Mina seeks out the sea god, only to find him caught in an enchanted sleep. With the help of a mysterious young man and a motley crew of demons and spirits, Mina sets out to wake the sea god and bring an end to the killer storms once and for all. It just had some really interesting characters, and like I said, it was very whimsical. Just an enjoyable read because it was a little bit different from what I normally read. And obviously, it looks great on a bookshelf. The next book I read was because of the Netflix show Bridgerton. So I watched season 1 and 2 of Bridgerton and picked up book 1 and 2 by Julia Quinn. So the first one is The Duke and I. And for some reason I wasn't expecting to enjoy the books as much as I enjoy the show, because I actually quite like the show. What I really like about the show is the like dry, witty humor that all of the characters have and how they converse with each other. And for some reason I didn't expect the books to be like that, but that is exactly what these books are like. I felt like I was laughing so many times just reading the dialogue, and I feel like writing funny dialogue is, like, that's a challenge. That takes skill. And I really, really enjoyed that throughout the whole book. I just felt like that banter was there. So I'm really glad I picked this up. I definitely recommend the series and the show if you haven't watched it yet. Book 22 is Book of Night by Holly Black. This is another gift. This one was from my parents for my birthday earlier this year. And another book that I really, really enjoyed. I think I've read another book by Holly Black, although I can't think of what it is right now. Did she write the Cruel Prince series? But this one was just, again, like really different, a really interesting idea. This one, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but shadows play a big part in this book. And it was just really interesting how it was written. And I mean, people say there's like no original idea anymore, but to me, I hadn't read anything that was quite like this. So it was really unique, and she's a great writer. And the main character I loved because she's just so flawed. There's just a lot about her that's happening. And the other characters as well. There's just a really interesting cast of characters, and you just don't really know what to think about some of those other characters until you get further in the book. So it was very interesting, really enjoyed reading it. Did not take me long to read because I didn't want to put it down. So definitely recommend that one as well. 23rd book was the next in the Bridgerton series. This is The Viscount Who Loved Me. Again, really enjoyed this book because of the banter and the humor. The next book that I attempted to read was Buddha by Deepak Chopra. This one I only made it to page 39. And again, I don't think it's that there's anything wrong with the book. I think it's just sometimes you pick up a book and it's just not the right time for you, or it's not written in the right style for you. So this one was given to me by friends who were moving to a different country. This is quite a few years ago, but I just picked it up this year to read it, and it isn't for me at this time. I was thinking about maybe donating this one as well to see if there's anyone out there who maybe it's more suited for them right now. Book 25 is Let the Rubble Fall by Mandy Lynn. I was lucky enough to receive an ARC of this book, not this physical copy, it was an electronic copy. I purchased this one after I read it. I really like these books by Mandy. So this is book 2 in the Snapshot series. So they're about Marley, who loses her parents tragically, and it's her coming of age and getting through the grief and dealing with different traumas from that experience. And it's also romance because of someone that she meets in the first book. And I really like these books for additional reasons, though. There's a lot of hiking involved. And I really enjoy hiking. They talk about these different mountains that they're wanting to hike up, and they go on some of the trips within the books. And so I kind of find them motivating in that way. Like, I find them inspiring. They make me want to hike more and get outside more. But it's also just a really lovely story. So I would also recommend these books, but this is the second one. The first one is called Meet Me at the Summit. So start with that one. But yeah, I really like the way she writes the characters and the way that she writes the characters getting through their trauma and kind of healing and learning and growing and letting go. And the last book that I read in 2022 was The Self-Love Experiment by Shannon Kaiser. So Shannon's another one that I found her videos a few years ago, and I really liked her content, so I started reading some of her books, although she does have a couple I haven't read yet. This one came out a few years ago, but it's been on my shelf for a while, and I just picked it up at the end of this year. And she does talk about a lot of aspects of self-love, but I would say that this is mostly centered around weight and body image and kind of her experience with accepting who she is in that regard. So I did enjoy the book. I think it had some good principles. So those are the 26 books that I read this year. So as I said a goal for 25 books and I read 26, if you count the ones I didn't finish. I also read some books that were either books or parts of books that were people looking for critiques or editing or proofreading. I didn't include those books because I can't share that with you anyway. I'm doing the same goal of reading 25 books in 2023, but this year I made a little book bingo to make it a little more fun, choosing which books I'm going to read. So this is the little bingo that I made. And I'm going to read them out to you in case you want to follow along and do the same. Although if any of these don't resonate with you, you're welcome to swap out and use anything else that you like. Some of these ideas I came up with myself, and some of them I saw on random lists on Pinterest. So these are the books I'm going to read. A self-development book, an old book, a book with an animal on the cover, one-word title, written by an author-tube author, a book that starts with M, a book received as a gift, an art book, an indie author, from a genre not typically read by me, a debut novel, a title that has a plant in it, reader's choice, fantasy, a book made into a movie or a show, YA, author of a different ethnicity than myself, something on my TBR for over 5 years, a writer craft book, a book hyped up by the book community, a blue cover, released this year, being 2023, author that starts with S, partner's choice. I'm a little bit scared about that one because when I told Scott that, he looked way too happy that he was going to be choosing something for me to read. So, hopefully it's not bad. And last, a book recommended to me. That's it for my 2022 reading recap and my 2023 reading goals. Let me know in the comments what you read this year or what you're hoping to read next year. I hope you're all having a fantastic holiday season, and I'll see you in the new year in the next video. Bye! Goal in 2022 to not write 25 books, read 25 books. That would be crazy. This is my absolute favorite paranormal romance. But I can't find it on my shelf, so I don't know if that maybe means I donated it donated it. Or like I'm just blabbering, so I'm just gonna start this over.